Welcome to the Theater Podcast, everybody. If you're brand new, welcome. It's good to meet you. If you're a returning listener, nice to hear you again. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and our guests today, plural, are Steve Rosen and David Rossmer, a super fun duo that I originally saw on stage a couple years ago in the critically acclaimed The Other Josh Cohen, and actually didn't realize it at the time and know it now, but they wrote the book, the lyrics, and the songs for that show, which they have now done again for the world premiere that just opened in Seattle of the Griswolds Broadway Vacation. So this is an extremely fun episode because we're getting them at a time when they are at the end of their fatigue of just opening the show and the excitement of the opening, and the two of them just together, they've been best comedy friends and real friends anyway forever, and hearing them together is just such a treat. So let's kick this off now. Everybody please enjoy this episode with Steve and David.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
I am super excited to get into our interview today. We have both halves of an incredibly talented duo of creation. Both of these gentlemen have many Broadway acting credits to their name, recently earning critical acclaim for their off-Broadway production of The Other Josh Cohen. They created the hit show Don't Quit Your Night Job, and between the two of them, have created original works. I guess it's between the two of you. I don't know. Original works for amazing peeps like Kelly Ripa, Kelly O'Hara, Sting, Zachary Levi, Ariana Grande. Individually, my COVID brain is great. Individually, they are creators of several podcasts, radio plays, and radio comedies, and have now decided to join themselves once again in holy career matrimony as the book, lyrics, and songwriters for lyricists and songwriters for the Griswolds Broadway Vacation. David Rossmer and Steve Rosen, welcome to the Theater Podcast. There we go. I got it all out.
Yay.
Wow.
That was the greatest introduction ever.
And that's all the time we've got. I appreciate you being here. No.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
All right. I want to jump into Griswolds Broadway Vacation because the Griswold is a family that we know. They are a very loving group of individuals that like to travel around and get themselves into trouble. And we're going to get into the history of how the two of you work together and how you met and how you decided to love each other in holy career matrimony. But first, about Griswolds, I want to have you explain like how this process even started, because this is something like a story of people traveling. The vacation series are it's a storytelling motif that's always changing and driving from place to place. So how do you adapt that to a stage adaptation? Why do you adapt that into stage?
Well, I think actually the most exciting part was when they first approached us. What tickled us was the idea that this was not a adaptation of any of the vacation movies. This was an opportunity to take these iconic characters that you're talking about that everyone knows, and my family at least, we were always called the Griswolds by our neighbors for all the antics we got into left and right, and putting them in a wholly original adventure. And when it was it's really the next chapter of their story, and they come to New York City to see a musical, and it's a musical. And that felt really like a great idea to put on stage. And especially, we were sort of the timing of it all, a show right now, a sort of big old Broadway comedy where about people leaving the house after a long time and going back on vacation with their family felt very appropriate to the times, and why it's probably been so much fun and so refreshing to work on. And I think that the fact that they come to New York, which is, already sings, and the fact that musicals and Broadway is a big part of it. In fact, I would say in some ways it's a love letter just as much to Broadway as it is to the Griswolds. And why we love theater and why we think theater is actually important. For those reasons, it felt like it had to be on stage. And I think that's what excited us to bring some originality. And of course, it's much harder to create a totally original story, especially for a musical. But I think we were inspired by these characters, these archetype characters who everyone knows and loves and feels akin to.
No, I was going to say I totally agree with everything that David said. Plus the fact that of all places to celebrate on stage is New York. New York has been such a classic location for so many of my favorite Broadway shows that I've seen over the years. It is such a fertile environment for adventures and hijinks, and the opportunity to create, like On the Town does of that generation, basically to create a New York that is of the world we live in today, that is recognizable to a modern audience. And as people who are New Yorkers and love New York, but also recognize the tourism industry, we work in Times Square a lot. We see what happens when people come to town and what they are confronted with, the New York that they are presented with. It just seems like a really fun opportunity to really explore that family that brings chaos wherever they go to a completely unpredictable city. Seemed just like a very interesting and fun chemical combination that opened a lot of opportunities for both comedy and also just to try and present some of the magic that it is to be in New York City.
You've got these archetypal family characters that you're talking about, but then what New York I guess stereotypical New York characters did you decide to bring in? And is there anything that got cut that you were sad about, like the I'm walking here guy and the nuts for nuts guy and all these other people that as New Yorkers, we know I'm getting to my accent already, so like what? Okay, I'll stop right there. What characters did you bring in that are fun to talk about?
It's funny you said this because literally both of those characters are in the show. You won't be disappointed. If you want nuts to find nuts, they both made it. So
the nuts for nuts, the naked cowboy, naked cowgirl. Yeah. You got naked people in the show, or mostly naked people?
Yep.
Sweet.
We've now covered all the bases.
Yeah, keep naming them. We'll tell you if they're in. But even down to the people that sell you the umbrellas on the street where the prices go up $20 as soon as a raindrop falls. They're here too.
Yeah, and Elmo and Mickey with their heads off.
Well, in the Griswold, in the vacation movies, they have a sort of parallel for Disney, which is Wally World.
Right.
And so that's actually something we honed in on very early on in the process was, wow, Disney has such a presence in Times Square and Manhattan. So it gave us an opportunity to play with that. And they actually end up going to the official Wally World restaurant of Times Square, Marty Moose's House of Pancakes in the show.
Is Bubba Gump's still open in real life, right? Bubba Gump Shrimp?
It is.
I avoid all of that so hard. That and Olive Garden. I don't know. But I figured they have to go to one of those things.
Those are real New York City restaurants. Those are some of the finest cuisine of Times Square.
I remember, when I was in high school and I visited New York for the first time. Middle school? High school. I think it's ninth grade. Yeah, we went to Olive Garden. I was like, this is the quintessential New York experience. We are in Times Square at the Olive Garden, and it was the best experience I had in that particular week.
You asked about things that got cut. Something that did get cut was actually a Bubba Gump Shrimp bit, where there used to be this scene where a poor pedestrian tourist got hit by a carriage horse, and a tourist doctor comes out to help him, and this man needs help, whatever, and then you hear zzz, zzz, and he checks his pager, he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have to go, my table's ready at Bubba Gump Shrimp," and he ran off. and that one didn't make it, but we love you, Bubba Gump Shrimp.
There's too much going on with carriage horses right now. That's a good call to cut that bit. I agree.
Totally.
Yeah. So
is there something carriage horses?
Yeah, there's been some horses have been mistreated, I think, is sort of what's in the news right now. So
yes,
that's terrible.
Yeah. So on that fun note,
we are in solidarity. We are in solidarity with carriage horses. Just so you know,
we stand in solidarity with the New York carriage horses.
The horses, not the drivers of the horses.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you yay or nay for abolishing horses in Times Square?
I think we should. My daughter loves the carousel horses in Central Park.
That's true.
So I think we should just ride carousel horses around Central Park.
All right, that's the takeaway from this episode is Central Park horses, not real horses in New York. There you
Right.
go. The two of you have a history of working together, doing everything, soup to nuts, in creating these things. To quote Kung Pao, Enter the Fist, that's a lot of nuts. Tell me you guys know that movie. I'm literally giddy with excitement talking to both of you. I love both of you so much. Okay, so tell me about how you met. Where did you start working together, and why, of all the things that you can divvy up and hire other people to do and whatnot, why did you decide to do all the nuts?
Well, we met. I mean, really, I think because our parents didn't want us hanging around at home over the summer, and so, yeah, they wanted us out so they could do adult things, and they both sent us to a performing arts summer camp in upstate New York called French Woods, and yes. David and I actually met before we had even exchanged pleasantries, said hello, found out each other's names. We were auditioning for like an improv group that they had at camp, like an improv troupe. And we were actually improvising together in a scene where there were two people narrating the scene and he and I were silently acting out the scene. And very long story short, we were cracking each other up and the room up with this stuff where we couldn't even talk. And from that point on, we have been extremely close friends, and we've been making stuff together ever since, making each other laugh and then trying to use that to influence other people's senses of humor as well.
And I think the reason we wrote everything is because it's just sort of how things evolved when we did the other Josh Cohen and when we did, Don't Quit Your Night Job even, though we had Dan Lipton, Sarah Salzberg as well. But we always sort of just chipped in and did everything. I think that we both write music and we both write lyrics and we both, write book and plays. So it felt like a nice match. And actually, we were doing less on this than we did on Josh Cohen because we're not in this.
True.
Knock on wood. So this was like, we were like, all we have to do is write book music and lyrics. This is a breeze.
The actual process of sitting down for those three different things, right? So where do you...
We never sit down. We always write standing out.
Oh, good.
This is the first time we've sat down in probably about 3.5 months.
Yeah.
Actually, you're hanging upside down with the camera rotated. So
exactly.
It looks like... Yeah, totally. I get it. Where do you start with the process? I guess take it back to Josh Cohen, right? Where did that idea come from? And do you start with the book? Do you start with the lyrics or songs? Like, I've talked with so many different people who do one or two of the things, and sometimes they start with just a refrain. Sometimes they start with a melody and put words to that, and it's all over the place. I'm always curious to what your process is. And is it different when you're by yourself than when you're together?
It's much quieter when we're by ourselves. The truth is that it really depends, even within the project, on song to song. I mean, Josh Cohen, we had the idea for a story. And so that was born out of a story, meets us being in Los Angeles before a TV meeting, and we were nervous, and we pulled the guitar off Steve's sublet wall and just started to write fake Neil Diamond type songs for our amusement. And somehow it felt like, wait a minute, we can put this story idea together with these song ideas and kind of make something interesting. And that's how that one developed. This was very much like, would you like to be considered in, a group of writers we're approaching for a project? They had the rights. They were, going to do this, and it was just a matter of who was going to write it. And so
they had an idea, but no story or any of those things. They really wanted to hear every part of how it would work. Sorry, David, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, we came up with sort of a bud of a story and said this would be the general idea. And then we were tasked with writing 2 songs. So we wrote an opening number, which is which is similar to the opening number now, but not the same. And then we wrote actually an Act 2 11 o'clock ballad number for Ellen, because we knew that we wanted to make this a very Ellen-centric story. For those who don't know, she's the matriarch of the family. And we thought that we kind of like the idea that she plays a prominent role in this, where often Clark was kind of spearheading the movies. And so we took those ideas and kind of put them in a blender, and we wrote these two songs, one kind of fun up-tempo opening number and one kind of a more heartfelt ballad, and said, hey, how much heart can we sneak into this thing? And they seemed to be on board with it. And from there, we just kind of wrote a draft. And I think to get there, we first started by writing everything we remembered about the movie without watching them. Because we thought, wouldn't it be nice if people who had never seen any of these movies could come, and you could have called this The Tourists and it would be A-okay? And so we tried to kind of create something that would be between, for people who have never seen any of these movies and for people who love the movies. And that's a balance we're still trying to find, because people have very strong feelings either way. And so, how zany can it be? How much heart can you have before people are not getting what they kind of expect from the Griswolds? So and we love the puzzle. So I think in that regard, writing everything together is more of a facile approach for us. There is something organic. It is tricky to write everything, and it is a lot of hats, no question, and it is probably more stressful. But also, sometimes things come out more organic when it's just two people who can affect everything. And so, the songs can attach themselves better to the scenes, and, you don't have to wait for permission for 5 people to make changes. And we love to change. I think the cast probably hates us because we put in brand new lyrics to a song yesterday and we opened today. But I think it's the love of the puzzle, and because no one told us to stop doing it that way.
That's very cool. And I guess the more you do as well, the more opportunities you have to win awards. And that's why we do it, right? It's all about the awards.
Well, the reason that anyone really gets into the arts is to compete against other people making different things for trophies.
as appropriate, yes. Like, you need the validation, so you might as well do the most, because then you have the most opportunity to do that. So, Steve, I want to start with you then. Let's back up to wee Steve, tiny Steve. When did you get into performing music, playing instruments? What got you into the theatre?
Well, I'll start with, I was never actually a wee Steve. I was born a full adult, which was hell on my mother. And I had a piano with me. No, I started, I grew up in a very musical household. My older brother played the violins, the Suzuki method, and my mother played piano. My father always wanted to be a musician. He actually wrote a song and went to the Brill Building when he was a kid. We recently found this record he made of himself writing this song. He is a dentist, so he never actually went into it. But music has always been a huge part of our lives. All of us had my dad wrote theme songs for all of us when we were kids. We all had our own songs. So just making up songs and singing has always been a big part of just the family dynamic. And I took piano lessons but Suzuki, which is the one where, your parent has to sit there taking notes while you play. And it became clear every week that I was not practicing. And then when the teacher would turn around to scold my mother would just be asleep in the chair. So it was, so there was a very ramshackle approach, but I also played the drums. And went to that camp since I was really little. So I was always very interested in musicals and the theater and that sort of thing. And it was a big part of my family growing up. And we would have jam sessions. My brother played guitar, and we had a drum set and piano. So we would, mess around even from a young age with Broadway fake books, and we'd make up new lyrics to things. I went to school, and really music has always been a huge part of my life. I went to college at NYU, and I'm just really I can't think of a time in my life where music wasn't playing a big part of it.
So, do you remember your theme song as a child?
Yeah, well, I can. Yes, I can. Of course, I can. But it will make no sense to anybody. But for instance, you used to call my brother Corey's theme song was basically a song he wrote that went. I guess it was when Corey was very little. It went teeny tiny toes and a teeny tiny nose, teeny tiny lips that go flip flop flip flop flip, teeny tiny thighs but great big eyes. Teeny tiny toes and a teeny tiny nose, and he called him Tiny. So that was his theme song. Mine had a lot more Yiddish in it, so at this point I don't know if it would be so exciting.
All right. Well, speaking of Yiddish, David, what's your upbringing?
That's funny. My mom was. She worked in the South Bronx and she taught teachers, but she was musical. She played the guitar and the piano, and she used to play Beatles songs, and she had this huge collection of records. And that is really where I first fell in love with music. And I remember just sitting there for hours and hours. I was obsessed and would read them cover to cover and as I listened to them and honestly, a lot of them were not. I didn't get involved in musical theater through musicals. I got involved because she had kind of like, from more of a rock perspective, because she had a lot of like concept albums. She had like The Who's Tommy, and she had, I guess, Jesus Christ Superstar, and she had Sgt. Pepper's, and all these kind of albums. I was like, oh my God, like it's this. It was like music that told the story in a way. But it was more of an album. It was somewhere between album and story, I guess, concept album. And those were the things that I really fell in love with. The Wall, Pink Floyd's The Wall. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that this kind of music could tell a story. And that was very appealing to me. And then came Cats. And we would like dress up as the Cats, and we would like, I would put on a bathrobe and sing Buster for Jones, and people have unfriended me for my love of Cats, but really I just couldn't get enough of it. And really, I have lost friends, but I just loved it so much. I just loved it. It's T.S. Eliot poems and beautiful music, and I just thought it was great. And my brother and I, as kids, we would dress up. We knew the whole album. That was our theater album. And then finally we went to see it, and a cat put, a shoe on my foot, and I was hooked. But mostly played in bands and stuff. The theater thing came a little later for me, but I always loved the idea of songs telling a story. Now, my father was not musical at all. He also made up songs, but they were one line long and out of tune, and I'm not sure they were in English. But what he did, he was known when we were young by our neighbors, as I mentioned, as the Griswolds. And they would, the Griswolds strike again. He would do something crazy like leave the electricity on in a weird way. And there was a squirrel that ran across one of the wires outside our window, and it got electrocuted, and it was like hanging there, but no one could take it down. And so he didn't want to touch it. So there was like a squirrel in rigor mortis for like a year, just decomposing on our wire. And that was your welcome to our house. It was,
it's like Handmaid's Tale. It's like a warning to other squirrels.
Exactly. Watch out. So I think that for this show, at least, he was a huge influence. And in all ways, he was a huge influence with his sense of humor and his kind of wry style, and honestly, his just sense of joy. And so, although he didn't have any talents in the arts, he was a real appreciator. And it still tickles me, that he's looking down and laughing at this, because, for me to be we're working on a Griswold musical, when our whole life he was known as that, is really special. It's actually, adds a little extra meaning to it for me.
That's beautiful. I'm picturing the squirrel just like smoking for 12 months.
Yes.
Just like hanging off the front of your house. Like all the other squirrels are over there across the street like, listen,
yes.
The rumor about the nuts on that squirrel. That squirrel kept all the nuts. But look what happened to him.
Totally. Yeah. People would come over, oh, what a charming house. What the hell is that?
Well, they still do that at Steve's house, but that's a separate story.
That's right.
Yeah, in the back, it's just a laundry line of animals in the backyard. There's possums and chipmunks, birds.
I saw on Reddit yesterday. I saw a post that someone, I follow NYC on Reddit, like the subreddit, and someone posted a picture of a squirrel, not a squirrel, a snake, and they were like, "What's a snake doing in New York? What is this? Is there something wrong with the city now?" And it was weird. It was the weirdest thing to see like a snake in the middle of Manhattan. But I used to live in Inwood, near Inwood in Washington Heights, and I saw a raccoon once, and it was the greatest thing. It was my little connection to nature.
Wow. Well, yes. Snakes eat rats, so it's may not be such a bad thing to have a couple of them around, especially underneath all of the new outdoor restaurant things that they've built that are all just sort of like now fronts for rat nests.
Well, I know that the show Griswold opened yesterday, but there's still time to put that scene in if you want to add the snake coming out to eat the rats from the street food that is being stalked by homeless people.
We actually we once had like a little rat that scurried across the stage. Our idea was that like there would be a piece of pizza center stage and it would just scurry on and grab the pizza and run off the other stage. But we'll have to save that. It's technically challenging.
Yeah, the pizza rat in the subway. You've got to have pizza.
That's
rat.
right.
Yeah, we need to get Bill Berloni to teach a rat how to eat a piece of pizza. I mean, there's a lot of work.
Exactly.
We got to train.
You got to get a rat wrangler. You got to get a backup rat. They have to be in school at certain hours. It's very tricky.
Yeah.
Very tricky to hire rats. Not impossible, but tricky.
I get that. Yeah, the animals at a show or something. I've never actually been in a show with animals. Don't ever think I want to. But so for for Griswold, you're not acting in it. For Josh Cohen and other things you've done, you have been in it. Was that out of necessity or preference, or why decide to create from the ground up and then star in something when you want to have like any sort of semblance of a social life?
It's funny you say that. As you well know, like getting anything from like a page or an idea onto a stage and in front of people, so many things have to get done in order for that to happen. And that means dealing with so many different people's schedules and availabilities and getting so many things have to happen right in order for anything to happen. And I think just by necessity, we have sort of just done everything because in order to streamline the process as much as possible, it's like, well, it will just be easier for us to just write for ourselves, especially for the Josh Cohen thing. It was like we tried to, at that one, we were trying to write something that required very little set that we could sort of do most of the work on ourselves, and where we could sort of surround ourselves with the material that we felt comfortable performing and that we could do it in the time frame that we have. A lot of the times these things are out of necessity because we have a show to do. Sometimes you get the date, like Don't Quit Your Night Job. We got the date of the first show before we actually really knew what we wanted to do. So really? A lot of the times it's like, it was crazy. It was all through really Sarah Salzberg and Jesse Ferguson at Joe's Pub, and they wanted to start late night programming, and they were like, so we'll give you these 3 dates. You guys will do something fun, right? And we're like, great. And then we literally were like, okay, we've got 3.5 weeks to come up with a concept, a cast, a show. What are we going to do with this time? How do we advertise it? All that stuff. And, there's nothing quite like a deadline to make you work. So, I think really it was just born out of that. It's when you know that people are going to be sitting down in seats and watching what you're doing, you got to do it. You got to do whatever isn't being done.
Do you have a repository or a Rolodex of ideas that you'll pull
It's
out
disgusting.
you bring out in cases like that. You're like, all right, I got 3 weeks to put something together. Let me pull something out of the hat that of shitty ideas that we can make less shitty.
You should. That's a great idea.
The Texas Idea Repository.
Exactly. The Rossmer Rosen repository.
It's by prescription only, and
Exactly.
you
I've
know,
never taken a repository. I hear it's tricky. Yeah.
sometimes when we're faced with where we have a challenge of something that we have to figure out, sometimes an idea that we've had that hasn't been in something will come up again. That reminds me of this or that. But a lot of the times we just try to approach things with baby eyes and baby ears and take every situation new and see how we respond in real time. Because that is probably going to be the thing that, if it's the first thing that comes into our heads, then it's probably going to be reflective of what other people are thinking in that moment too.
So I'm curious too as to how you decide when to work together and when not to work together, because you each have your own individual credits that are equally impressive as the stuff you've created together. I touched on some of this in the intro, but like David, you've been working with Kelly Ripa's production company, and you sold something to ABC and wrote for Kelly O'Hara's album and blah blah blah. Yada yada yada, etc. etc. And then Steve, like, you've created comedy material, like I said, for Sting, Zachary Levi, Ariana Grande. Like, where do these opportunities come from individually? And you can tell each other to like put on earmuffs and cover each other's ears if you need to. But like, when do you decide to work together and not?
Until he pisses me off, and then I'm like, forget this. I'm out.
I'm out.
I'm out.
I think I mean, I can't speak for David. First of all, those things that you mentioned, the Kelly, the Zachary Levi and the Sting and stuff, those things we did do together, because those were through Don't Quit Your Night Job. But I think it really is it is opportunity. It's like, I think when certain things come across our plate, when things are brought to us, that and the timing sort of works out. And I think that we're both lucky enough that we've been, working together and independently as artists throughout our careers, that we have other relationships that sort of come up and spring up opportunities. And, we often try to, in the other things that we do, bring each other into those things too. It's really about creating an artistic community in New York. There are not a ton of people that do the kind of stuff that we do, and so our paths do tend to cross. So I feel like try to work together as much as humanly possible, and then when other opportunities come up, we try to fit them into our schedule around the other things that we're doing. The goal is to just keep making stuff, I think.
Agreed. We still love it after all these years. We still make each other laugh.
It's the best.
And yeah, we look for every opportunity to get in a room. I think that, the reason that we do sort of sprinkle our projects amongst different people sometimes is we just love the collaboration. At least I'll speak for myself. I love working with other people. I love throwing ideas around with other people. I love the writing process not being so lonely. I have enjoyed also, that as well sometimes, but I find the most fun is when you're in a room with someone or people who you enjoy spending time with, who you feel are of your world, and you're making something together. And, any ideas on the table, you can shoot down any idea. And like, it's just a goal of kind of, it's like sitting down at a board game, except everyone's playing together to win. And I like solitaire. It's fun. But I think there's something about working with other people, whether it's the two of us or many other people. And the truth is, though, even when it's just the two of us working, we are still often incorporating plenty of other, personalities and talents, and, from the other pieces of the creative team to, working with other writers, depending on what, is needed for the moment. And I think that, even on Josh Cohen, we were working with Dan Lipton, and, we work with Sarah too on things, sometimes, or we'll bring her in and beg her to play a role because she's so funny. So I think that I think we just love collaboration, and that's where it stems from. And so whoever has an idea and wants to make something, we're like, and if we like it, we'll just say, great. You know, what we can't think of a more amazing way to spend our days. So, Alan, if you have any ideas, you know, we're open to it.
I have a wonderful idea for a sci-fi radio play, but I'll pitch it to you off the air. Yeah. Okay, so I want to wrap up with 3 standard closing questions.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah. Well, I can't say it on air because people are going to steal it, and then, you know, whatever.
Sure.
So the 3 questions I ask everybody to wrap up the episodes. We'll take turns. David, we'll start with you for the first one. The question is, gonna find how many times have I done this and I forgot my fucking notes?
7. Did I get it right?
You
that
win.
was not the question.
That was not the right.
Okay,
42
sorry.
is the answer. All right. So, David, start with you. The first
Yes.
question, very simply, is just what motivates you?
I am motivated by good food, family, friends, and an opportunity to say to anyone who's interested in our writing, hey, do you feel this way about the world? Does this make you laugh? Does this make you think? What do you make of this crazy experience around the sun?
All right.
Also, seized chocolate.
Steve?
Me, fear, anxiety, depression, honestly, what it is, it's a lot of the same things David said. It's my family, it's my friends, it's community, it's creating things with people who are as passionate and inspired, or as passionate as I think that we are to create and entertain and make people think and feel. Which is why this process has been so amazing, working with this incredible cast. And I mean, the people that we get to work with on this project are so incredible. And that is sort of, I think that's what motivates me, is the idea that we can keep making things and telling stories and getting things in front of people. And I think more than anything else, the opportunity to make people feel better after they've seen something than they did when they came in. Because I always try to think of, like, when someone comes to see something that we've done, maybe, and I never would wish this on anyone, but maybe they're having just a really, really bad day, like one of those landmark bad days where something terrible happens and everything is shaken in their world. And if they can come in and they can watch something and smile and laugh genuinely and forget about everything for a second, that to me, that's what motivates me, is making people, changing the way people feel from having a bad day.
All right, so Steve, you're going first on this next one then. What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
That's a great question. I would say try mustard earlier. I waited until college. And honestly, it's a delicious condiment. I did not give it a shot because I didn't like the color and the smell, but it tastes better than it looks. I would honestly tell myself to don't be afraid of people's judgment, of people telling you that they don't like something, because I think and don't take criticism to heart in ways where you take it personally. I think that when people offer up opinions to you, sometimes it comes from, their own feelings about themselves, but also there's stuff in there that is, actionable and usable as feedback, because I don't think that I've always had such a great idea of who I am. It's the whole thing of, like, you look in the mirror and you make a face in the mirror that you never actually make in real life, but you think that's how you look best. Sometimes it's helpful to know how the world views you so that you can be a little more realistic about how how you interpret the world and put energy back out into it. Also, I would tell myself to hang out even more with my friends, and that the time that we're spending laughing and joking is not wasted time ever, because something as amazing and fruitful, it's just proof that you can work with, like, your best friends in the world and make it part of your job. if I had sort of realized that earlier in my life, I think that I would have dived even earlier into making stuff like this.
All right, David.
I always give the same advice, but I really firmly believe in it. Read books. I don't know why that's the advice that comes to me. Just read books. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be about the business theater. I'm just anything that interests you. But I have found that has been the most inspiring and creative outlet for me to just probably pull ideas from consciously and subconsciously for writing, for performing, for life. And so whenever someone asks me what I'd say, because I don't think I have the answer and because I think that everyone's path should be different, that's the one thing I think of. Just read as much and as many things as you can.
I agree with that. I think it fosters maybe a subconscious effort to stay open-minded. You're just learning. You're always learning and more open. So, all right.
Agreed.
So, David, back to you then. Last question. If you can only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Blood Brothers.
All right. Easy. Steve?
I don't know why. I loved Blood Brothers. I saw it like 4 times. Brian Darcy James signed my playbill. I don't know why that music hit. I just loved it. It was something about it. Again, like a contemporary story with music that sounded like Pink Floyd or something, and just a very interesting story. And no one is they're gonna just turn me off when they hear that.
Steve?
But yes, that would be it.
I'm surprised you didn't say Cats. I'll be very honest. I guess you've seen it probably enough times at this point.
I did it with the cats. We talked about squirrels and raccoons and rats and cats. I just felt like name something that didn't have an animal.
I guess if I had to see one thing, part of me wants to name something that I've never actually seen, so that it's not just comfort food that I'm seeing something new, but then I'm sort of stuck with it. If I don't like it, then it's a problem. I think I always have to go back to Fiddler on the Roof. To me, it's the perfect musical. It's just, and it's long. So there's enough parts of it that I'm not going to just get bored of seeing it over and over again. I can just be like, you know what? I'm just going to go straight to Huddle, or I'm going to spend a little more time with Perchik today. Really get into Now I Have Everything. But I also, so I think that's what I would pick, Fiddler.
What is have you ever done Fiddler? What would be your character of choice?
I have done Fiddler. I did it at French Woods. I played Tevye in a production that David was in, where something hilariously terrible happened. But that's for another day. And then I did it in high school, where like True West, me and another guy were double cast, where some nights I was Tevye and some nights I was Laser Wolf. So things got very confusing into Life L'Chaim. I'll just say it was a roller coaster.
And how many nights did you do it?
Oh,
was it in rep?
That's funny. No, I know it sounds like that. No, we did 4 performances, and I was Tevye all day Saturday, and he had Thursday, Friday. So, but I could grow my own beard.
I was gonna say,
so that's how it was.
If it makes you feel any better, I was in a production of Jesus Christ Superstar as a kid, and they also double cast it, and I was Jesus on one night and Pilate on the other night.
Wow. Those are two very different vocal, but that's also David, if you listen to the other Josh Cohen album, and I highly suggest doing so because it's very enjoyable. David can sing anything. He has that kind of voice.
If David can do anything, it's play Jesus and Pilate in the same production.
And he's Jewish. That's the craziest part. I guess Jesus was too.
Exactly.
Like the same character. Half your face is Jesus, the other half is Pilate.
That's right.
You just turn one way or the other, and you can play in the same
scene. The Jekyll and Hyde.
Very moving chance of you.
So where can we find you both online and connect with Fifth Avenue Theater, Griswolds Broadway Vacation?
We're at the Fifth Avenue Theater now until October 2nd. And if you go on Instagram to Rossmer Rosen, ROSSMERROSEN, you can see some very under-curated things that we put up because we are not the greatest social media people, but we try. We're learning. And, we're in all the regular spots. If you look for us on Facebook or wherever you can find, or Twitter or Instagram, you can find those kinds of things. But you can find the other Josh Cohen album on any streaming place, any place where you listen to music. Really do come to Seattle and see us. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm going to plug too that what is it? Who are your Hunter Foster and is your Clark, and then who do you have now as your Ellen?
Megan Reinking is her name.
Megan
Reinking, who you've probably seen on Broadway. She was in Hair, she was in Dracula, and she is just wonderful. Kate Rockwell, who was playing the role of Ellen, is having a she left our family show to go have her own family.
Right.
And so Megan Reinking has stepped into the role beautifully. It's another testament to this wonderful company that everyone is just with open arms. There are so many moving parts to this, and everyone is just being so adaptive and wonderful, and we're so lucky.
Oh, yeah.
That's beautiful. All right. Thank you. Thank you both. You can get more of me at thetheaterpodcast.com. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and I'm on TikTok. I don't know what I'm doing there. That's also under curated. Thank you to Jukebox the Ghost for the intro and outro music. And Steve and David, thank you both so much. This has been fun. My cheeks hurt from smiling.
Well, and we just thank you for coming in with such a post-COVID sexy voice. It really was fun. And
thank you. In a world where COVID takes over my body.
It's weird. A sexy voice saying a very unsexy thing.
Wait. What is sexy? Give me something sexy to say.
Say.
What is considered sexy?
Griswolds Broadway Vacation is the hottest show in Seattle.
Griswolds Broadway Vacation is the hottest show in Seattle.
Oh my God, thousands of tickets just went. It's amazing.
Cha-ching. Thank you.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.